Is if I would have known. So we got 3 gentlemen in the building, and we got 1 young lady in the building. So one by one, let's come up with some topics on if you would have known. I'm gonna add something to it. Then let's say then, if you would have known then, what you know now. Give me an example, ladies first.
If I would have known then what I know now, I wouldn't have done all the crazy stuff as a child, as a kid.
Examples, please.
Like getting in trouble, getting a record, because it follows you everywhere you go.
No matter the misdemeanor.
It never goes away.
Wow.
Unless you get it expunged.
Yeah.
We're gonna go oldest to youngest first. So,
if I had known then what I know now, those investment opportunities that I let go by would have been, I would have made them. Even I would have made the necessary sacrifices then, so I can be much more comfortable today. I'm good, but it could always be better, who knows? I might have spent some time. I might have actually gone into the military. Looking back over the years and how, based on what I see from my friends who went and the various rewards, if I can use it, benefits that come along with it, that helps them, that have helped them in their lives and stuff. So, yeah, there's some things I would have done different. I would have studied harder in high school, and not, and I probably wouldn't have inhaled as much while I was in high school, and would have studied harder because it makes a difference.
That's not true. James, that's not true.
That's not true?
No, because if you study high, you get high scores.
Well, not necessarily, because sometimes you can study and just overthink it, overdo it, like you do too much. So sometimes that last minute studying, for me anyway, I was the ones who studied on the school bus on the way to school. If I had a test that day, I studied on the bus while I was going to school that morning. Because I knew if I studied at nighttime, the next morning I was done.
Yeah.
So I was a little different.
Those things would have been different.
Next person, we second oldest.
I think if I would have known that keeping up relationships with this public relations, I probably would have did a better job at keeping. Like I always can make contacts with people, but I sometimes would not keep the relationship up where I could have, or possibly like I would make the contact and then just never call. You know what I mean? I think that, and also when I was in college, I switched from computer science to art major, and now I do computer work. So I would have just, I would have stayed there also. So that's 2 things for me.
Is it on me?
So it's on you.
Yeah, let's do the honors. I guess I'm a combination of everybody a little bit. I definitely would have invested in Bitcoin more than what I did, and Doge. If I knew then, I knew now. I enjoyed the military, so no regrets. I probably would have actually stuck to my major and my minor that I was actually going for, which was computer science, and the other one's economics. So.
Yeah, it hindsight is 20/20, and it really does make a difference. Now that you do know, what have you done to make the changes?
Exactly.
Have you made any changes? If you're wise, you've made some changes.
Exactly.
But you got a bunch of, well, for lack of a better phrase, a bunch of old fools out there because they're not willing to make the necessary changes
Or learn from the mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it really does make a difference when we have to go back and rethink, re-examine ourselves, and just try to figure out, where did I make the mistake? What did I do wrong? Not that you really regret it, but you might have made some different choices, you know, and that's the part that we have to live with it, because we made the choice to begin with, even though we might have been warned by our parents, our friends, co-workers, and whatnot. You said you would have invested in Bitcoin
and Doge, both. I invested in them, but I should have invested more.
Okay.
Yeah, I regret not investing more.
Is it too late?
No, I still invest in it. I
Okay.
still trade stocks, but not like I should have invested when I did more. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know when Apple and Microsoft, well, I was probably too young to do anything with Microsoft, but Apple, I definitely could have jumped in with a few extra, with a few dollars in something like Apple, when he was first came out. But you never really, because it's an investment and you've heard so much negative stuff, particularly in our community, we have a tendency to be a little standoffish on new things, and not taking certain risks that maybe we should take the risk. Now I'll say that was then, even though it was still prevalent. It's still prevalent today, but I think we're more apt to making investments in CBD, marijuana farms,
Exactly.
making investments in just the things that are coming out now, that we have an opportunity to get in on the ground floor, where before it was like,
yeah.
And
I think it's levels throughout the years too. Like maybe y'all generation was like, nah, that ain't happening.
Right.
We didn't been done wrong too much. I don't want to take the risk.
Right.
But then I think in Sean's it's more like calculated risk. Now our generation, we just risk it. We just doing stuff.
I think,
Yeah, we just doing it.
like when I was in high school, I think it was like a business class, but it was like basically most of it was learning to type, right? So we joked, I'm like, when am I going to learn to type? I'm not going to be a secretary. Like, it's things that, like, now the information is available. Like previously, you kind of needed a mentor that you actually knew to be able to even understand what the landscape is.
Right.
But now you kind of, you still need mentors. It's definitely, it will expedite your progress. But just the wanting to know more, the interest in it will feed you the drive to get there if that's in your heart. You know what I mean? Like for me, I was a computer science major, and I was a business major. That's with the computer science. Then I transferred schools because I had to, deal with tuition and stuff. I was out of state. So when I went to Temple in Philly, I still didn't have a mentor, even though the person that was supposed to be like telling me these are your classes you was taking and stuff like that, it really didn't help, So eventually I graduated with a BA, and I got to a point where I was doing graphic design and things like that. And I'm like, it feels like it's a ceiling on this, So for me, it was like, well, what's the next smartest move to make to just try to progress monetarily and kind of like freedom of being able to have opportunities.
Right.
And that's when I kind of fell into learning about computer like development. So, from that, I just kept following, follow the stream, and then you end up at a place, it's just consistency is really the key with that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny you make that statement. My uncle, I love him to death, but he wasn't around a lot. But he taught me something. He did say that was like his biggest lesson. He was like, whatever you do, find a mentor. In relationships, find somebody older than you that you can learn from.
Yeah.
And not them just tell you like what to do, but just how to be a thinker.
Yeah.
In a relationship. For finances, find a mentor.
Yeah.
Somebody's more successful, has more money, they're, wise investor, follow them. For whatever career path you take, just find a mentor. He's like, for everything in your life, just find a mentor.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing. If I would have listened, not even if I would have knew back then, but I'd have just listened back then. Now I do. I have mentors for relationships, finances, my career, everything that I like to do. I do plug in mentors, and yeah, my favorite one is actually the one in Seattle. I met him out there when I was got out the military. She like 60. Well, he's 68. She's 65. But they're like life coaches. Like they just got their stuff together. You know, Salesforce.
Yeah.
He created it.
Okay.
He's a software engineer. Black dude too. Dude. Yeah, he got his plaques on the wall. I said, "You created Salesforce, CRM?" He was like, "Yeah, that's me."
Yeah.
I was like, "That's clutch."
Yeah.
You know, you don't know who you don't know who you gonna meet.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, but it's the tech capital. You meet people that
Yeah.
do all types of stuff. But yeah, they just dope kids. They never stop learning. They never stop learning.
You got to be willing, open to receive what comes your direction from folks, well, especially from mentors. You got to be open to it, whether no matter what the field is. Because when we at Black Push, when we go out and we do our different events and stuff, there's a lot that we're learning out there, because I'm not one for doing rallies and
Yeah, I've never
all that
done
kind of thing. I'll support you and send in a few dollars,
Yeah.
or sign a petition, but to actually go and have an opportunity to meet people. They say networking and stuff, but I'm not a politician, so I really don't have anything in common with them. But come to think of it, they didn't have anything in common. We didn't have, they didn't have anything in common with a whole lot of other folks too before they became politicians, before they became activists and everything, and they just found their tribe.
Yeah.
They just found their tribe, and some of us are still looking for it.
Yeah.
So it really does kind of work out to know what you've done in the past, and realizing and understanding the mistakes that you've made, and then making the necessary corrections so you can have a better future at the end of the day. And being able to, everyone talks about leaving a legacy. So what kind of legacy do we plan on leaving?
Yeah.
So are we going to go ahead and continue to be scared to make those kind of investments, but whether it be financial, spiritual, or even make an investment of your time going to these, doing rallies and being an activist or a politician, whatever the case may be. We have to be able to make some sort of sacrifices.
Yeah.
And I always, as a in ministry, I like to say to ask this one question: what are you willing to sacrifice?
Yeah.
And that's not just people say sacrifice, but they think financial. But this goes way more than that, especially if you're in ministry, because you're talking about your time.
I'm about to say that's
for yourself, and then dividing that amongst your coworkers and your family, and maybe saving one small portion for yourself, but you're doing family, friends, whatever time you might spend with the enemy, co-workers and so on, just people, and then still be able to give back to the Creator.
Yeah.
So what are you willing to sacrifice? So that's my question to you all. What are you willing to sacrifice for yourself, for your family, for your job, your career, your business? What are you willing to sacrifice? So if it comes down to having to make a decision or a choice, you know what you're willing to do. But you got to be, it has to be at the forefront. It really does.
Yeah, that's rough. I mean, for some.
For some.
Yeah. I'm single. Mine's a little different. But when you do have like a family, like you got to be attentive, like active every day. That's hard. It's hard to make those sacrifices, I'm sure.
Yeah, but then that's why you have those people who are parents and are willing to make those necessary sacrifices. And then you have the folks who don't want no kids because they, their commitment to making sacrifices is different.
Exactly.
And I commend them, because at the end of the day, if you ain't got no kids, you don't have no legacy to leave to nobody. A niece, a nephew, perhaps, and because you can always send the kids back home, but you do make some sort of sacrifice of some, at some point in time. We all do, and it's just a matter of what are we willing to sacrifice. And then sometimes there's sacrifices that are made that we aren't willing to make, but they end up being made anyway. So, so when you don't know, so when the topic, if I knew then, we all made those sacrifices. Of not knowing, because we've all made some mistakes along the way.
Horrible.
Horrible.
I was horrible ones. I was like, what are we doing here?
I think that one of the biggest things, coming from a community when you are strapped for resources, money is always an issue for us, right? But I think the biggest resource that we don't really put a value on when we're younger is time.
Right.
And focus and consistency, and what you can do with those three together. You know what I mean? Like, I tried to influence a bunch of people that I knew to try to get into coding, just because of, like, it almost feels like what you put into it, you'll get out of it. It is hard, but it's not impossible. And I always ask people, when they would tell me, like, well, it's hard, I'm like, well, what's easy about what you're doing now?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you invest the same amount of time in what you're doing now into what you're doing, how far is that going to get you versus what this might get you? And I think that without having, like, a vision, it's hard for some people to even see themselves in a place that they're not in currently.
Right.
So it's like, I almost feel like it's almost like a superpower, just being consistent on your goal. Because, people will ask me, like, previously I was doing silk screening. And it's like, well, what are you doing now? And I'm like, silk screening. So what are you doing now? I'm doing silk screening. It's not a joke. But people, I think they don't, even especially at a younger age, I heard the saying, youth is wasted on the young. And as a young person, I got it. But the fact of not having a clear direction, if you don't have a mentor, as a young person, you're kind of like feeling out, trying to see which way you're going to go, but without, like, somebody saying, well, what's your goal? And then start backwards from there.
Right.
Or even pick a goal to try to just, even if you're just getting into the practice of trying to be consistent on one thing, even if you set a small goal and say, oh, well, I wanted to do, even if, everybody wants to be an entertainer nowadays, which is kind of ridiculous, but if you were like, okay, I want to make a song, it's like, well, how do you make a song? You know what I mean? Write a verse, write, you got to start somewhere and then work backwards from there. But as a young person, you'll waste time doing a lot of things that you could be putting that energy to something positive, But if you don't have somebody pushing you in a direction, it'd be all over the place. You know what I mean? So I think it's definitely a value in having a mentor, even if it's like at an older age. When I got into coding, I attempted to go to a boot camp, and I got turned down because I couldn't afford it with the credit I had. So I came across free resources. So it was like, now I'm doing it by myself, and like being self-taught. At anything, you're really self-taught. Even if you got a mentor, you still got to do the work on it.
That's right.
Like, I could tell you how to get a six-pack, but unless you go in there doing the work to get one, you're not going to get it.
Right.
So for me, you
pick look like mine.
Everybody's path is different. Even if you're walking on trying to get to the same goal, your journey is different from mine.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I told my wife, I'm like, we're in this relationship together, but we're on different paths. Your path to this goal, we're walking along the same road on a different path. Because what's even in a relationship, what's for you is for you, and what's for me is for me. We might be in a group just moving, progressing together, but that doesn't mean you think exactly like I do. Or I could tell you something, and I could be so vividly clear on it, and it don't resonate with you.
All right.
So when I got my goal, and I tell you what my goal is, you're like, well, good luck. Good luck. Even though she's there to be my cheerleader, and I'm there for her for the same thing. you just got to have that focus, consistency, and have a goal, I think. And that'll lead you, even if you might set off on that goal and end up in another place.
Right.
And you're like, man, I never thought that I would be doing this, but this is where I found my success at. So for me, just having that practice of those three things, I think would get our community in a better place, just mentally, just learning how to learn and how to be focused and how to be consistent. You know, even if you started off with $1 a day, if you could afford it.
Right.
You know, where could you be with investments, you know, in 3 years? You know, people go to jail, do 3 years and be like, man, I did a bid, you know.
Right.
If you was doing a bid on education, where would that get you in 3 years? You know what I mean? That's how I just learning how to learn taught me how to focus, and how to focus, hopefully it take me to where I'm trying to get to. You know, and that's the legacy
Right.
that I would pass down to anybody around me, not just my children, but just, it could be an older person, it could be a younger person. But, you know, I try to talk to my uncle and be like, look, man, maybe you should think about this. But just be consistent on it.
Right.
You know? So that's just what I try to give out to other people. You know?
Staying consistent, for real. Yeah.
Great consistency is
It's like
all the difference.
It's a superpower. Because most people, I feel like, they may have focus, but they're not consistent.
Right.
And you might have those two, but don't have a goal.
Right.
So you could be consistent on just being non-consistent.
Right. Consistently non-consistent.
You know, so
Yeah, for real. That's true.
it's really like just focus on your goals, start backwards, and if I know I'm trying to get to Philadelphia, even if I had to walk, at least I know where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Maybe I can hitch a ride with you. You know, maybe you gave me gas money, or you know, who knows?
You know, there was something you just said made me think about something I told my son many years ago. You have to, as far as starting at the end and working your way back, if you want people to say nice things about you, about your life, when you pass away, so they ain't lying on you and making up stuff, because you know we've all been to funerals and we've all heard it. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to live it today, so they can speak the truth. They ain't forced to lie. They can speak the truth and still give your name some sort of honor to it. You know what I'm saying?
Real quick, you know, I wrote a book for that reason. So people ask me why I wrote a book. I wrote a book because I get tired of people that I know don't go to church, right? So the pastor meet the parents of that person who's deceased for maybe 2 hours.
Right.
Then that service the next day, they talk about like they knew him all their life. So that's why I said I wrote my own book. My story is in my book. I don't want somebody talking about me. I almost said the wrong thing. About me.
Right.
But again, if you knew then, because you got a lot of folks, man, that really have fallen by the wayside, family members and friends alike that have fallen by the wayside, and we like, that don't sound like Uncle so-and-so.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't know that about my auntie.
Yeah.
But, you know, and some of it is truth. But if you really want somebody, for those of us who are still here, if you really want somebody to speak the truth on you, and you got to live it today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have to. If you're gonna leave a legacy, you got to start living it today, so you can have a legacy to leave behind. But there, you know, so I told my son this, and when we did his funeral, and I heard the stories that they told about my son, I knew, you know, when you tell a kid 12, 13 years old, and then just kind of you know you told him. Mm-hmm. But when we had the funeral and people were speaking about him, I was like, wow. I didn't realize that he had took that and actually applied it to his life. And those folks, the job he had at the time, they shut down the business that day, and everybody, that the bosses and quite a few of the co-workers came to the funeral.
Oh wow.
that actually says a lot about him and his character. But it can happen to any of us. You know what I'm saying? But you actually have to start living it for that to take place. So, if we knew then what we know now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, folks, I ain't trying to preach to y'all, but you know, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, thank you, folks, for tuning in, joining us on Push Talk, on Push Talk this day, and we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful evening.